Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Pucknology Writers Room episode number 3. Tonight, we are going to talk about the draft. We're going to do a bunch of cool stuff. We got a few things we're going to break down. We're going to talk about obviously what the Sharks did in the draft and give our feelings on our prospects, feelings on the picks. We're going to look at what the division did and see how we feel about how the rest of the division did. And then we're going to kind of give some winners and losers, and then we will turn it over to you in the question and answers. So hopefully everyone will be super happy campers, and it'll be awesome. So with me today, starting with my usual compadre would be Kevin Lacy, who has joined us again today. He is a Pucknology contributor.
Hey guys, for those of you who are wrestling fans out there, I discovered these shirts that some people were wearing at the draft over the last 2 days, and I think it's pretty awesome. So
I love it.
For you wrestling fans out there, Austin 2016 says, "I just whipped your draft."
Nice. All right, and also joining us is the one, the only, the great Hockey Jerk.
What's going on, guys? Thanks for having me on today.
Oh, absolutely. No, this is going to be fun. All right, so let's get started. We don't want to dilly-dally around a little bit here. Let's just start with I just want to start with some overall thoughts of the draft, because we kind of had a little chat going on about the draft before we went on air, and we thought we should save it for air, and I think we should probably get out of the way. What were you saying, Kevin? Tell the wonderful people at home what we were talking about before we so rudely interrupted them with a live show.
Well, I thought NHL Network did a very solid job of covering the draft this year from top to bottom. Last year I felt like day 2, most of the time day 2 is just a lot of blah, blah, blah. We're not actually going to talk about any of these guys because we don't know half of the people that just got drafted, which will probably end up being what our writer's room is today. But except Ian. Ian knows everybody in the draft.
No, not at all.
But NHL Network did a very good job of covering everything, and they actually focused on the players instead of just interviewing the same people, or not the same people, but interviewing players with the same questions over and over and getting that, I'm happy to be drafted and I'm going to give it my all and I'm going to try and make the team out of camp. Like, how many times do we have to hear that? So it was really refreshing to get a bunch of analysts to actually talk about certain players, and even like 6th round every now and then they'd be like, "Tell us about this guy," and they did a great job.
Yeah, no, I agree. And the thing that I kind of pointed out too that I was really impressed with this year was that last year when I watched the second day, they would just do recaps of this is here's Connor McDavid going to the podium, here's Dylan Strome going to the podium, here's whatever, and just Jack Eichel, and it just, to me, they didn't do that this year, and that was great because, yeah, obviously, they didn't give you, you had to kind of still pay attention to the board, but at the same time, they didn't just, you didn't miss 15 picks so you could rewatch highlights from the night before.
Right, and they didn't throw Rob Gronkowski in the highlight package.
Right. And it was good because, obviously, you're going to get, the C team or D team, on day 2 of the draft, right? It's not, you're not getting Bob McKenzie and, Pierre Maguire and all those guys for day 2, even though Pierre Maguire should probably be there the whole time because he's, he knows. You think I know everything. Pierre Maguire is the real hockey robot. An annoying hockey robot, but a hockey robot nonetheless.
Sure,
so,
that's very...
I like that. I thought I thought the second day coverage was probably the best I've seen in a long time.
Yeah.
What about you? Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I didn't mean to cut you guys, both of you, off here, but I was going to say, as someone who's only had access to day 2 coverage for the last 3 or 4 years, this was easily the best coverage they've had. What about you, Hockey Jerk?
I was going to say, and you both touched on it too, I really like how they made it a point to say, hey, there's still people being picked. We're not going to just totally blow them off. Mm-hmm. My viewing of it was kind of in and out just because I was still, asleep. But I really did like how I know they interviewed Doug Wilson while there were picks going on, and I know they had a graphic on screen even while that was happening. So I really like they did a good job of keeping everybody in the loop on what their teams were doing for day 2.
Yeah, absolutely. So moving on, I suppose. Where's my notes? I'm the worst.
Well, I'll just touch up while you look that up there. Their merger with MLB Network has been, I mean, it's night and day now. The coverage overall, not just the draft, the coverage between last year and this year. And I was harping for years on Twitter about, because I think MLB Network is the gold standard of sports coverage, in my opinion. So having that marriage there, I mean, we saw it with the outdoor games where they built a rink in the studio, and now we're starting to see it with their actual programming. So I expect things to continue to go up with the network. Great job, guys.
All right, so to get things actually rolling now, we'd obviously start off. We're going to talk about the Sharks picks that they made. We're going to try and keep it kind of easy for everyone to process. So if we use some weird terminology, we're going to actually make an effort to explain what it means. So let's start with their second round pick, number 60, Dylan Grambrell, centerman from, I don't know, he's a centerman. He's from the University of Denver. Yes. Yep. Kevin, I guess I'll let you start with this one.
Well, I guess right off the bat, it was an eyebrow raiser because it was the first real off-the-board pick. I know that in day 1, Boston's pick at 29 was like, wow, okay, that came out of nowhere. But he was at least on most boards in the top 60, 70. Mm-hmm. The only board that I saw Gambrel on at all was Future Considerations, I believe, had him at like 91 or 80.
91, yeah, something like that.
So the Sharks have been known in the past to do things like this, but when it's your when it's your first pick in the draft, and there are still plenty of good names, and I'm sure we'll rattle some of them off here in a little bit. Yeah. I'd rather see that go to something a little more proven than Gambrel, and I don't mind Gambrel, but yeah, let's hear your guys' thoughts first.
Go ahead, Jerk.
Gonna be totally honest, he's not a name that I had heard really at all before this morning. But I did a little bit of looking into him. One thing that stood out to me, for me, my ideal center, regardless of what line you play on, is to be maybe 6'2", no shorter than that. And he's only 6 feet tall. Granted, he also has a lot of room to grow. I believe he's only 17 years old. And I mean, his stats at the University of Denver, say what you want about how unknown his name was, his stats there were pretty solid. 47 points in 41 games, and even in the USHL the year before, he had really good stats as well.
Yeah, I think my beef with Grambrell isn't that he was taken; it was where he was taken.
Right.
That's my big beef with the pick. I don't mind the pick, but the fact that he was taken when you had guys like, when you had some guys that were still on the board that were still, there's a lot of better players on the board. And the thing I don't like about him also is this is a D+2 player, which for those that don't understand that means draft year, he's 2 years past his initial draft year. So this guy is going to be 20 years old, I believe, next month.
In August.
In August.
6. I have it up right now. So August.
Yeah, so he's going to turn 20 in August. And to me, so he put up some good numbers, but he's also 2 years older than, players that are probably putting up similar numbers that could have been drafted and that are going to have a higher ceiling. Like, there's only so much ceiling left when you're talking about a 20-year-old. That's the part that really bothers me.
That was a theme in the overall draft class for the Sharks this year.
I don't care. Yeah, that's dumb.
I'm just pointing it out.
No, it's good to point out, and it is a solid thing to point out because it's going to be a theme that we're going to come back to.
Yeah.
That's my issue with the pick. It's not that we took him; it's where we took him. You could have easily taken him probably with the 111 or the 150, you didn't have to take him with number 60. So that's my beef with the pick. But other than that, like, yeah, there's a lot to like about the player other than where he was drafted, like what position he was drafted in. To me, I liken this to last year's Mike Robinson pick. I just didn't understand it. Mike Robinson
beat me to it
in the 3rd round. This is just another one of those weird picks. And no, again though, but there's a lot to like. Like I wrote a little bit about him today on Pucknology. There is stuff to like about this player, but I don't care. You shouldn't like where he was taken, and it should frustrate you to no end.
Yeah, Gambrell was on the top line as a freshman for the University of Denver. He was playing with Danton Heinen for most of the season. They did get to the semifinals of the Frozen Four. Part of me wonders if the Sharks scouts saw something in Gambrell when they were reviewing Gage Osmus during the Frozen Four, since North Dakota played Denver in that semifinal game. But Gambrell, being an undrafted player for last year
and the year before,
ranked above some other drafted players, not top-end drafted players, but guys like Quentin Shore and Troy Terry, who were expected to contribute to Denver. Danton Heinen, Gambrell's line mate, was the only one who had more points on the team than him. And like I said, Gambrell was a freshman, so that there is something to be said about his, especially his playmaking ability.
How do you feel about the NCHC as a division though in the NCAA? Because I'm not super high on it. Like I like Lake State, but it's not Hockey East. It's not the Big Ten.
Yeah, you just said it right. You said exactly what I was going to say. I am definitely. Where is North Dakota fall? I'm not up to snuff on college hockey so much. But is North Dakota in the same division, or are they in Big Ten?
I think they're in.
Because Chris
helps out here. Chris, where are you in the chat?
Yeah. For the college hockey that I do watch, I really like the North Dakota program. Outside of that, all the big programs are out east. So.
Fair enough. I will look it up. Jerk, do you want to add anything to this while I look this up?
Something else that caught my eye as I was just looking more up on him. He did win the NCHC Rookie of the Month award in February. 13 points in 6 games, which, it's a small sample size, no doubt, but it's definitely encouraging for, like I said, especially people like me who don't know a whole lot about him. I mean, maybe he can be something,
Oh, sorry. And Chris just pointed out that that North Dakota is in the NCHC as well. And again, I don't like. I'm not saying it's a terrible division. It's not the. I don't think it's not as good as other divisions. That's all. And I'm not a super college hockey guy. In fact, I'm a dumb college hockey guy. But I mean, just based on what little I know, I just feel like when you look at like the Big Ten, especially Hockey East.
I was going to say Hockey East definitely gets the most love.
Right, yeah. And I don't know, that just could be because it's like Boston and that's where all the media is. And...
You brought up the point about where Gambrell was taken, and I don't know necessarily if they could have gotten him in round 4, but I definitely would. Round 3 was doable for sure, and so obviously I'm not in with Doug Wilson, so I don't know what phone calls he may or may not have made, but I would have really, if that's the guy you were going, like the pick of Gambrell, clearly that's a guy you target. So if you're targeting Gambrell, you can't move down, get a 3rd and a 4th for that, and then still take Gambrell there, because I liked Marcus Niemelainen. Everyone seems to want defensemen on the Sharks. I don't blame you guys. I brought up the point actually last night on Pucknology After Dark that if your team can't develop defensemen, then you might as well just not draft a defenseman. But Niemelainen is a guy that I really liked, and then you could still get Gambrell later on.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, like, again, you're right. I mean, I don't know. I don't have a crystal ball. I can't tell you what would have happened if they didn't take him at 60. I don't see many teams taking a guy who's 2 years past his draft year, and you know, like
Yeah.
fourth round is kind of where that's where those kind of gambles start to make sense. I don't know.
Yeah, well,
All right.
Connor, I believe Connor Bleakley was his name,
Mm-hmm.
Avalanche first round pick in 2014, and then here we are 2 years past his draft year, and he's going in the 5th round to St. Louis. I mean, that's a prime example of what you were talking about.
That's a perfect example actually, and it's sad for Bleakley. Like I like Connor Bleakley, but injuries definitely can slow a guy down. Okay, so moving on to our next pick, and this is one I actually liked a lot. Fourth round, number 111 overall, Noah Gregor, another centerman, because apparently we needed centers. I guess I'll let you go first, Dirk, since Ken went first last time.
This was a pick that I really enjoyed. I mean, the size I'm not a huge fan of, but it's something that I can, I guess, get over when you look at his stats, which were pretty good. Excuse me. Just about point a game pace with Moose Jaw in the WHL. Had a solid playoff run as well. Something that really stood out to me, though, and I get, the AMHL is a very lower tier league in Canada, but 2 points per game pace over his career there, which I thought was really interesting.
Yeah, I really, to me, like this is my favorite pick of the draft. In fact, I think this pick probably saved the draft for me. I would probably be spitting fire on the show if it was not for this pick.
Yeah.
Yeah, like this is a guy I really, really like. He had a 73-point season in 72 games. I mean, you can't really go wrong with that. The Mooseheads are, they were a pretty good team. They had a decent run. He had a decent playoff run too. I like his game though. This is a guy who plays a 200-foot game. This is a guy that's going to go in the corners and go in front of the net and and take the beating. And he knows the beating's coming and he just doesn't care. And I like the acceleration. I like the work ethic, and I feel like this is a guy that could easily, push his way through the depth chart, and not obviously next year, but in a couple of years, this guy's going to be fighting for, this guy could be easily fighting for a spot on the Sharks, if not, in a year or so, at least being a big part of the Barracuda. Well, he seasons more. I think that, this is a guy I really like.
Definitely. Sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say I really enjoyed this pick as well. I think of this guy as being a utility player, and what I say by utility player is Gregor comes off as the player that you can put on any line you want. Or if you need to add some grit to the first line, he can provide that. If you want to add a little bit of scoring to the third or fourth line, he can provide that. Like, I really like the flexibility that Gregor shows for the Sharks lineup coming down the line. He was a guy who was injured, I guess.
Yeah, he missed his entire first season.
Yeah, the 14-15 season, I guess he was injured. He put up decent numbers there in his brief time. So I wonder if that, for some reason, caused him to slide. Because this is a guy that, like you mentioned, if you flip-flop the picks, Gambrell and Gregor, that makes sense.
I hate this draft significantly less.
Yeah, I was going to say, Bob McKenzie had him at number 77, and he slid all the way to 111. So I think if the Sharks would have taken him at 60, I honestly don't think anybody would have bat an eye. I think he's a solid pickup, and like you said, Ian, I think he saved the Sharks draft.
Yeah, and the thing too, going back to that, I mean, you gotta figure that losing a whole year of development, he broke his collarbone and basically played 5 games, I think, his first year, and then missed a ton of games. I don't even know if he played again that season. And to come back from that and put up that kind of season, missing a year of development and just coming into the lineup and just being a factor like he was, he basically is like, okay, well, I missed my rookie year, but I'm going to come in now and be a top line player. Hope you don't mind. Like, I don't mind. This is an awesome pick. I love it.
He strikes me as a guy who's gonna, he's gonna slide under the radar, and then say he does make a big impact with the Barracuda, or he does come up with the Sharks. You're gonna get all the people who are like, oh, I knew this guy win, and blah blah blah, and all this stuff. But I think he can definitely be an under the radar guy.
Yeah, I was thinking because I like his. He was on Canada's under-18 junior championship team. I wonder if he's going to be a guy who could crack the junior 20 team for Team Canada, but kind of be an underrated, under the radar guy, and it's get some goals and then all of a sudden become a big name for Canada if someone else struggles. Gregor just pushes his stock right up.
Yeah, this could this to me looks like this kind of reminds me a lot of the Chartier pick, who didn't have amazing numbers in his draft year and then just exploded the year after, and then and then was injured his final just this past year. But you can still see the tools are there. I think that this could easily become another Chartier where 2 years down the road we're going, holy crap, how did we get this guy at 111?
The one thing I do want to play devil's advocate on is he was on a line with Braden Point, who I love, and Dryden Hunt, who was an undrafted player that signed with Florida. Both of those guys are moving on to the AHL next year, so we'll know kind of right away, is Gregor gonna cut it, or is he gonna falter without those two high-producing players on his wings?
Anything else anyone wants to get in on this guy before we move on to the next guy? All right.
I just wanted to say, go ahead. Sorry.
No, I was going to move on. So if you have something to say on Gregor,
it's actually not on Gregor. It's just that for those of you who go, why didn't we have some more picks at the upper half of the draft? You got to remember that we did trade the Sharks did trade their third round pick to get Max Latunov from UConn. That, in a way, is like a third round pick, right? I thought
that was next year's pick.
Yeah,
that was next year. That
was this year's third was for everybody's favorite defenseman, Brendan Dillon.
Yes.
Oh, geez, that's right. It was. Okay, never mind.
Shout out to Rocket Backhander.
All right, so in the fifth round at number 150, everything gets really less sexy as we go here. Obviously, when you don't have a first-round pick, this is what happens. The Sharks grabbed another center because, again, centers must be always. They grabbed Manuel Weger. Yeah,
this is a guy I really like. I like him.
Well, you know what? Then you can go ahead first.
I mean, he, same kind of thing, 2 years past his draft year, was born in 96. Just looking, he played in the queue with Moncton, had some solid stats. He was over a point a game. Something that really stood out to me, too, was in 17 playoff games this year, 12 goals and only 4 assists. So while he is listed as a center, I'm wondering if he can be a guy that's going to get shifted to the wing eventually.
Yeah, when I was looking at for things on him, a lot of the places I looked at for like scouting reports and stuff listed him as center/right wing, I believe.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
So, do you want to go on this, Kevin, before I rain on the parade?
Let me quickly jump on this. What I do like about Vider is he seems really self-aware. He seems like a smart player. Which I guess is a theme because of the draft, because I heard Gambrel is a really smart, cognitive player. His under-18 numbers in Germany were incredible.
Yeah, they were.
Yep.
But this year in the queue, he was an overage player, and I wonder if he qualifies for an overage year next year as a 20-year-old, since he's only played 1 year in the queue. But overall, I don't know if he needs to carve out a niche as a grinder. But he certainly seems to know his place in the world, and be accepting of whatever role he's asked of. So that's what I do like about him. I'll be right back, guys.
Yeah.
And if you just go ahead. Sorry.
No, it's okay. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, just looking, his stats in the queue and at the World Juniors and in Germany, the goals are there. 2012, 2013, 69 goals in 22 games. But you also see is he racks up quite a bit of penalty minutes too. So I'm wondering if he's going to be that guy who, say, someone's giving it to Donskoy or whoever, he's going to jump in and be like, not so fast, dude, get out of here.
Yeah. Yeah, this is the one thing that I wanted to point out, and Kevin kind of hit on this. This is another guy that's overage who's playing in the German Elite League, the Dell League. He played in the Dell 2 and then the actual league. So he went from basically playing with adults back to playing with teenagers. So you do kind of want to take the numbers with a grain of salt. The 29 goals, 35 assists, nice totals, but you kind of do want to take them a little bit with a grain of salt because you have a more developed player who's already played with adults going back and playing with kids. So I think that's something that at least should concern you a little bit as a fan. But you know what? This is a guy he's got wheels. He's got wheels and he's got the smarts to go with it. He's got decent vision, and and I just feel like this is a guy who never really did well over in Europe, like as far as numbers go. So I kind of, to me, this is one of those guys who just might be better suited to the North American game and doesn't really fit in the European game. So with him being, I believe he was a loan, so there's a good chance he could end up on the Barracuda next year. I don't think they have to send him back to the queue. I think it's a possibility, but they might just shove him in the bottom 6 on the Barracuda next year.
Yeah, he'll be able to go to the Barracuda because he was loaned to Moncton by the German league.
By Straubing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Keep his DEL numbers with a grain of salt, though, because a lot of times you get 17, 18, 19-year-old guys playing in those European professional leagues, and they're on the 4th line, and the way those leagues operate, their 4th-line guys are lucky to get 4 minutes a night.
Yeah,
so,
right. But even like in the Dell 2, his numbers weren't amazing.
No, that's what in the Dell 2, yeah.
Like yes, it wasn't like he didn't have super numbers really over until he moved over to the queue. He didn't really have big numbers in any of I didn't really notice any significantly eye-popping numbers over when I was looking up his previous years over in the Europe leagues, other than the World Juniors. Hey, buddy.
Something else that just popped into my mind too was I'm looking at his stats right now, and in the under 20 and the under 18 leagues he's played in, he's racking up a lot of points, and I fully attribute that to him being on their top lines.
Yeah.
But then he goes to the Dell or the Dell 2, and like you said, his stats are pretty underwhelming. So I'm wondering if he's a guy who's kind of like in the middle, kind of good, like really good at the lower level, but can't crack it at the upper level. And so I'm wondering if, say the Sharks do send him to the Barracuda this year, providing they sign him, I'm wondering if that will help him, I guess, develop his game to play with older players.
He's a guy who has actually been quoted as saying, my transition to North America was a little rough, but I know what I need to do to get better, and I'm looking forward to the challenge. And like I said, it goes back to his smarts just as a person, a real character guy. So I feel like he's a guy that if he needs to make a niche as a grinder, he knows that he needs to do it, and he'll be willing to accept it.
Yeah, you know what? I don't hate this pick. I think there's a lot of buyer beware on this pick, but I don't hate it. I mean, it's a 5th-round pick for one, so
yeah.
It's hard to be too critical of, like, when you start getting to the 5th, 6th, 7th rounds. It's hard to get to be really critical, but so it's not. I don't think it's a terrible pick. I just think that it's not,
and
as
it's
well
not
as in the 5th round.
It's not a Kai Hospelt pick where Kai Hospelt never has come over, never has left Germany. Kai Hospelt was drafted like 10 years ago and has always been in Germany. And I think Dominik Bielke was also a German player that we drafted that never came over. So with Vitor already being in the queue, we don't have to worry about that factor.
And Chris Edwards just reminding us that Dell and Dell 2 are with guys who have been playing pro hockey as long as he's been alive. So,
right,
yeah, we have to cut him a little bit of slack. I don't hate the pick. I'm not excited about it either. I think it's a pick that I'd like to watch. Is it gonna be awesome? It might be, but it might also be Nikita Yelop. Yeah, help me, Kevin.
Yes, Plavs.
Thank you.
Sorry, I was on mute. Yeah,
That's all right. Yeah, so I kind of wonder like what. I kind of wonder if that's the app comparison. Like, do we have something special, or do we have, But the Sharks have done a good job drafting from the European leagues guys that have, are better, that should be better in the North American game. You've got Noah Rod in the system. You've got Balsers, who also is another guy who I think is going to adapt to the North American game very well.
Yeah, I agree with you on Balsers, actually.
Yep.
All right, so moving on, as I'm being told to read a book, but I'm not going to.
read the draft from top to bottom. Pick
guys,
number 1.
Do you guys want
pick number 3? Sorry, I'm still not over that. Oh, there we go.
I could read you this. Here you go, buddy. Okay, so the 6th round pick, number 180, and this is exciting for me because this is a guy from the OHL, which means I still have a prospect I can watch. Unfortunately, it's Mark Shoemaker. Not exactly an exciting pick, a defenseman finally, but this is just a big, this is a big stay-at-home defenseman, a little bit of adventure outside of his own zone. He's got some tools. He's kind of raw. He's got some tools. I don't hate the pick. I was hoping that if we're getting Trastom from the OHL, it'd be someone a little more exciting to watch other than, oh, look, he's going to hit that guy over in the corner there and then pass the puck.
Something that stood out to me was pretty, like you said, stay at home, so pretty underwhelming stats, only 13 points in 67 games. But he was a plus 14, which makes me kind of, I guess, cross my fingers that he's going to be someone who won't necessarily get burned all the time.
Right.
But he also was a -8 in the playoffs in 11 games. So
who did North Bay play, though? I can't remember. I should know this. I feel like they played someone that should have rolled them, though.
Yeah, possibly.
Give me a second. I'm going to look that up.
I don't have a lot for you guys on Mark Shoemaker. He's a big, he's a big guy. He's already 210 pounds. He's an older 18-year-old who barely missed qualifying for last year's draft.
Yeah, only I think like 2 weeks.
Yeah, actually less than that. But I don't have much for you guys. He was not in any of my draft info. As far as I know, he was 188 on Hockey Prospect and not rated on the Keens or future considerations, any of that. So I don't have a lot for you guys on Mark Shoemaker.
It's like one of those. It's a typical Doug Wilson pick where you have to have your big stay-at-home defenseman in every draft. Just to go back to that, the Battalion defeated the Peterborough Petes in the first round in 7 games and then got absolutely smashed by the Barrie Colts in the next round.
Oh, well, there you go.
Something
having Kevin LeBlanc and Dylan Sadaway, and they were just really good.
Something that kind of stood out to me too, and I don't know, a little disappointing, but despite the name, he's not a Shoemaker, unfortunately.
Yeah, and that upset me a lot. Look, I haven't really. I'm not going to lie. I mean, the Battalion's not really a super team that I must go see, so it's not usually. That's a game I generally pass on. I won't pass on in the future. Obviously, I haven't seen a ton of them to really. I know a little bit about him. I've seen him limitedly. He doesn't. He's a guy that if he stands out, it's probably not good. It's he's better when you don't notice him, and that's probably the best thing I can say about him, which shouldn't excite anybody too much. But I mean, if he turns into a bottom pair NHL defenseman that can shut guys down, then so be it.
Yeah, he was a 6th round pick, which isn't supposed to open any eyes at all, really. So like you said, if he can make it to the NHL as a bottom 6 defenseman, I'm fine with the pick.
Yeah. All right, and last but not least, at 7th, number 210, second last pick of the draft, we got Joachim Lichfeld, Danish gentleman. I don't know squat about him. Here's what I do know. This is what I wrote on Pucknology today. Basically, all I can do is I can look at stats for this guy, and this is a 17-year-old who was playing in the J20 system of the Swedish Elite League for the Malmo Redhawks. So, I mean, that right there I like. Obviously, he's a 17-year-old playing, obviously a league ahead of where he should be. Still managed to put up 15 goals, 13 assists in 45 games, which is pretty pretty good considering the ice time he's probably getting.
Yeah.
He's represented his country in the U18. Again, 12 goals, 3 assists. I don't know who plays in that bracket of the, because it is Denmark, so I don't know if they play in the same. I don't know if it's broken up when you get to the U18s. I know sometimes some of them are weird. They get broken up into different pools. But I can't really tell you anything about him other than from his stats. So I couldn't really grade this. And go ahead.
Okay, so Joachim Blichfeld, he's obviously, like you just said, he's a Danish player that played in Sweden this last year. We have to watch ourselves with that pick because the Malmö Redhawks are not. They don't have really any success in the top tier of the Swedish Hockey League. They don't really have a strong J20 system either.
So I should be less impressed.
Yeah, the only guy on that team that I would have thought have been drafted at all is their goalie, Tim Holtstrand, which I would have actually been fine with that pick. Holtstrand was amazing for them in the J20 playoffs. He had a .951 save percentage, and I think he's slated to be the backup, but enough of him because we didn't draft him. There are some guys who have come out of Malmö, like Franz Nielsen and Carl Söderberg. Recently, Andre Burakovsky and Rasmus Andersson, who was a Flames early second-round pick, if I recall. So they do produce some talent, but there are far stronger systems in Sweden. So that pick is all right. But you do bring up a good point that he was only 17 years old. He'll be 18 here soon. But he was playing in a league ahead of where his progress probably should be. So we'll see. We'll see. At 210th.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Very low risk.
But yeah, there's that system outside of Holtstrand. They do have actually a really promising Slovakian player, Martin Fehervary. Say that 5 times fast. But he's not. He won't be drafted until 2018. So they do have a few guys with, that they can surround Blichfeld with. But
yeah,
I don't know. It's an okay pick.
All right, so let's move on. So basically, I thought something else that we could quickly kind of just gloss over is how, obviously we'd be here the whole night if we did like the entire league, but I thought, we should probably at least talk about the other teams in our division because that's kind of important. So I'm just going to kind of run through what the draft picks were for each team, and then we'll just kind of quickly, just overall thoughts. We don't have to go super in depth. If there's guys in there that you like, then obviously, we can talk about that. But I don't expect you guys to have like something for every 6th round pick of the Anaheim Ducks or Edmonton Oilers. So anyway, I'm going to just do this in alphabetical order. So Anaheim drafts Max Jones, Sam Steele, Josh Mahura, Jack Kopaka, Alex Dosty, and Tyler Soy. Kevin, what do you think of the Anaheim's draft?
I don't know too much about. I've heard the name Tyler Soy. That one sticks out to me for some reason. I don't know why. He was their 7th round pick, you said?
I believe so. I didn't write it down. I just kind of.
That's okay.
Really took.
But the Ducks, man, again, they've got Sam Steele and Max Jones. I feel like they keep getting guys that it's like, wow, it may not be a stretch that they're available at these points, but how do the Ducks keep lucking themselves into, wow, we know who we're going to pick in this spot,
Mm-hmm.
I really like how they're at least their top-end players in the draft. The only thing is, with Sam Steele, for example,
mm-hmm.
he kind of reminds me of a prospect in their system who I raved about, Nick Kurdelis, who was a second-round pick years ago. Nick Kurdelis has done okay for the San Diego Gulls, but he hasn't. I thought he would be an NHL player right now. So there is a little bit of question as to the Ducks seem to know how to draft, but do they know how to develop some of these guys? So as happy as I am for them, with their draft. Who knows if the guys are going to pan out in their system?
Right, and just to kind of piggyback onto what you said about Sam Steele, I like the pick just because I feel down the middle it gives them a lot of options. I mean, you look at Getzlaff, not old but not young either. Same thing with Ryan Kessler, and then really, who else do they have down the middle? I mean, Thompson, Ricard Raquel, who I feel like jumped between center and wing.
Yeah, he's more of a wing now.
Yeah, I thought he played much better at wing, but I think Sam Steele is he's a good guy to take a flyer on, I think.
Yeah.
I know when they drafted Max Jones, I said, "Oh my God!" With him and Nick Ritchie,
Nick Ritchie.
Yeah.
It's like Corey Perry and Getzlaff like 2.0. Maybe not like the offensive upside, but just we're gonna hate Max Jones. Sharks fans, just start hating him now. You are going to hate this kid when it's all said and done. Like, the first time you play him, he's such a little prick. Like,
yeah,
I love him as a player, but he's a prick, and you're not gonna like him. I really like. I liked their draft. It wasn't super spectacular, but I would say it was good. I like Sam Steele. I like the pick. I like the Milhura pick. I think it's Pup Profiles in the chat saying it's an interesting pick, and I agree. I like it. I think the Anaheim they did all right, honestly, and as much as it pains me to say it,
yeah.
they did A-okay.
Yeah.
Yep.
What else?
Let's talk about Calgary.
We're not there yet. It's alphabetical order. Arizona comes before Calgary. Arizona, Clayton
them.
Jakub Chekrin, Cam Dineen, Patrick Kudla, and Dean Stewart. Man, those first three picks, holy cow.
Yeah.
They hammered them. They hammered them. Making the trade to move up to get Chekrin was fantastic. I am not a huge Chekrin guy. I didn't think he'd fall out of the lottery, though. Clayton Keller's such a good pick there that they took. I hate Arizona. This is a team that's just it's not even fair.
I really liked Arizona's draft because they pick up Keller, who's gonna shore up their center core, which already has Dylan Strome and Christian Dvorak in it. But then I really liked their later rounds because you think about their forward core. Dvorak, Samuelson, Brendan Pierlini.
Right beside me.
And then you think about their decor. They traded away Gormley. Murphy and Stone are good, but they're not going to jump into the top four unless they have to. So I think they did a really good job of shoring up their defensive cupboards.
Oh, yeah. And they added Goligoski, too, and I think that's a really underrated pickup for Arizona.
Yep. He'll be on that second power play unit for sure.
I don't know if Chikrin's going to make the team straight out of camp, but you could be looking at a Goligoski Chikrin second pair, for example, and that's not going to be fun to play against.
I feel like
I send Chikrin back to Sarnia.
I was going to say I agree with Ian just because I feel like with Chikrin, he's got the size, he's got the skating, and he's really confident in his offensive abilities, and that's a good thing. But I think a guy like that, you really want to make sure your defensive game is as good as it can be before you start trying to jump into the play every 10 seconds.
Yeah. Arizona's in no rush to.
No, not at all.
No, I agree. Arizona, look, this is the reason they made the trade, because they know they're not going to be good next year. So now they've got the 1 year of the cap, but they can use to take the Daxud hit, and then they sit with that hit, and then when all these guys start coming off the books, you're going to have guys like Dvorak with a year of pro under his belt. Max Domi's going to have a couple of years of pro under his belt. This is going to be a scary team. I give this team 3 years, and that's when I think 3 years we're going to really start seeing them turn the corner. And then in 5, they could be easily smashing everybody in the division.
Yeah, and they added Anthony D'Angelo by trade.
Yes. Oh, that is a guy that I really like. I tweeted about him today. I'm a big fan of the power play specialist, and I think he can be that guy. And say what you want about attitude problems in Tampa, but I don't know. Maybe the desert will sweat all of the attitude out of him.
I like what Chaika said when he got him, because this is a player I'm really familiar with. Played his last junior year in the Sioux. And this guy's an adventure, man. Like when he's on that line, he is the best player on the ice. But if he goes over that line, like he did, and we watched this against Erie, the game they got eliminated, like he just paraded to the box because he completely imploded. So if they can, if he says he has faith in his staff, if they can get him to where he can play on that line and not go over it, that's going to be a hell of a player for them. And the cost that they gave up for him is fine. Like I really liked what Arizona did.
Yeah, basically you're saying it's Libor Hayek for Anthony D'Angelo, and I think we're all going to take D'Angelo on that one. Not to disrespect Hayek, but yeah, D'Angelo was a projected first-round pick that dropped to a very early second, or was he in the first round?
He was a first-round pick.
Yeah,
okay, there you go. See,
late in the first round, I believe 27.
Yeah, 29 maybe.
27, I think.
27. There you go. So yeah, Arizona won big today.
All right, Calgary Flames. All right, Matthew Tkachuk, Tyler Parsons, Dylan Dubé, Adam Fox, Linus Lindstrom, Mitchell Madison, Itu Tolula. I probably butchered that. Tolula. Matthew Phillips and Stefan Polkovsky. I don't know, whatever. I'm going to butcher names. I'm going to Don Cherry this. Ontario.
I really liked what the Flames did, too. I mean, I've been saying for a good amount of time now that I could see Matthew Tkachuk really working out in Calgary, because you think about who Calgary has. Bennett, Monahan, Goodrow, and then I guess Frolik jumps into the top six just because of the contract. But then Mason Raymond and I almost said Yuri Hiller, but Backlund, Matt Stajan, guys like that. Like none of those guys are really going to jump into your top six, and I think Tkachuk has a really good chance of doing that. Probably not this coming year, but next year. He's definitely got the size to him.
Yeah, you want to talk about the guys with Nick Ritchie and Max Jones on the second line. Say the Flames are able to add a right wing. Heck, maybe they might even bring back Yuri Hudler to play with Monahan and Goodrow. Your second line is Tkachuk and Sam Bennett together. They're going to make people miserable, and they can produce more offense than Ritchie and Jones can. So that's really dangerous for the Flames.
Yeah. The Flames are just like, there's so many picks here that I like. I mean, I would probably go as far as to say they nailed everything. Like, I don't think they missed on a pick.
Yeah.
I love Matthew Tkachuk. Tyler Parsons, I'm interested to see what he is without, like, that. I like him. I think he's a decent goalie, but that London team was pretty damn stacked. So, little curious to see what Tyler Parsons is without that, incredibly stacked, junior team in front of him. That I'm curious about. But I still think, not a terrible pick. It seemed like they went on a run. Pup Profiles again, kind of beat me to it in the chat. Adam Fox is just, he just goes. Like, it's amazing. And, Dylan Dubé I like a lot, super a lot. Kelowna Rockets, another team that I've watched a ton of hockey from, when I was watching Chartier. And, yeah, I love it. I love this draft. I can not stop catching over it.
Going back to what you said about Parsons, it's a goalie that they need. Even if he doesn't pan out, it's a goalie that they need. I mean, yes, they got Brian Elliott, which, again, just speaks to how successful the Flames were at this draft. But Ramo's gone, Hiller's gone, Backstrom's gone. I still think Ortio goes to the KHL. That's 4 goalies gone. Gillies had major hip surgery, and while being a top goalie for them, a prospect for them, who knows what he's going to be. And so you got the rest are Mason McDonald, okay. And then they signed David Riddick, Nick Schneider, So they needed to stock up the cabinet in goaltending, and they got Elliott and Parsons. So
yeah.
Great.
Plus Elliott's 31, so he's not going to be around
Right,
forever.
right.
And
But
sorry, go ahead.
I was gonna say, but Brian Elliott for he gets like he's probably like got to be like and Slushy's like freaking on the chat. He's not a starting goal liner. Brian Elliott has been the most
Finals.
like under yeah I know you forget that though. He's one of the most underappreciated players in the league. This is a guy that has been in so many situations where it's like, okay, you're the stop guy and this is the guy, and then he ends up taking the job, and he did it in Ottawa. He's done it in St. Louis. Like everywhere he goes, he takes the starting job. He works his butt off, and I love that pickup for Calgary. I love it.
Yeah, and in general too, they had a really good draft here. I mean, if you look with with the exception of Fox and Volkovsky, it's pretty forward heavy. But then you think about their decor. Their decor is pretty young, and I mentioned it earlier. Their forward core is nothing really to be excited about. So I think it's a good for them. It's a good refresh for their whole forward core, and I'd like to see maybe two of these guys make the team, and I still think it's a steal for them.
Yeah, absolutely.
Chris Edwards in the chat brought up Edu Tuula. See, now I can't even say his name.
I know, I'm the worst.
Edu Tuulala. There we go. It's Tuulala. That is a sleeper pick. He's a motor. He's 6'3", 227. He's a motor, and he can score. He might not be a high-end scorer when it's all said and done, but he's got a lot of promise. And to get him in round 6 at 150, there's a lot of different elements to his game. Project, maybe, but at round 6, absolutely take him.
All right, so moving things along here, we go to Edmonton, who obviously had Jesse Puljujarvi just fall into their lap. Hell with this team. They also drafted Tyler Benson, Marcus Niemelainen, Matthew Carnes, Philip Berglund, Dylan Wells, Graham McPhee, and Asperli Rassinen. Obviously, having Puljujarvi fall into your lap is pretty awesome. I like Tyler Benson. I like Niemelainen. I think after that it drops off pretty quick. It was a so-so draft for the Oilers. I don't think it was a bad draft. But, probably not a great draft.
Yeah.
What do you guys think?
Go for it, Hockey Jerk.
I really like Benson. That's a name that's really stood out to me. I don't want to say like a guy who could go in the first round, but definitely stood out to me as one of the better forwards in this draft. I mean, didn't do a whole lot on the goal scoring side, but he was passing the puck a lot, 19 assists in 30 games with the Vancouver Giants this year. He was also their captain. So I feel like for them, he was kind of a big player. I don't know. That's just what I think.
I lost my train of thought there. I will say that Tyler Benson should have been a first-round pick because I'm not a huge believer that a guy who suffered a lot of injuries, yes, it's a little bit of a precautionary thing, but a guy's injuries should not affect a guy's draft ranking that much. And obviously it didn't, I guess, because he got taken 32nd. But you're looking at Puljujarvi, like that wins the draft to me right there.
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, having that fall into your lap, I mean, how can you screw that up?
Yeah. And then let me pull up that list again. Benson, Niemelainen, liked him a lot. He's not going to be an offensive defenseman. He's going to be a defensive defenseman. But hello, Edmonton needs quality defensive defenseman, and he's mobile.
He's going to
don't really know too much about Cairns, but Philip Berglund's another one because we'll see what happens. But he's out of that powerhouse Skellefteå, just money-making Swedish team program, I should say. And a lot of the defensemen for Skellefteå have actually left, so Berglund's going to probably play some decent minutes next year for them, gain a lot of experience. So there's another sleeper pick right there. They got him in round 3, but I like that pick.
Yeah, I don't know. I know I'm getting some hate for that. I thought it was so-so. But Vince G makes a very good point. Like if they can get into free agency this summer and make some trades happen, then when they're done in the summer, it might not matter. They might just be they might come out of the summer smelling like roses if they can do what they need to do. And getting Puljujarvi, I mean, really, now who isn't expendable? Who can you not trade to get a defenseman? Because to me, that list stops at McDavid and Draisaitl. I think you could trade everyone else now that you have Puljujarvi in the fold. You might even trade Taylor Hall at this point. Sorry.
Yeah, I agree. And I don't know, if you ask me, I think Taylor Hall should be an untouchable just because he was supposed to be the face of the rebuild, and it hasn't totally gone the way it was supposed to. And I don't really think that's his fault, but
It's not his fault.
I still think he's a candidate to be traded. And I don't know, not to go super in depth into it, but I think a guy like Shattenkirk, who's supposedly going to be traded at some point before next season starts, I think that would be a good swap for them because St. Louis is going to lose Backus, and if they're not careful, they're going to lose Brouwer too. So,
yeah. All right.
What did you think about Dylan Wells?
Huh?
What did you think about Dylan Wells, the goalie that Edmonton got? Like, he plays for the Peterborough Petes, and it seemed like some people were pretty high on him, but his numbers were terrible.
Yeah, it's so hard. Junior goalies are so hard. I feel like he's not very big, is he? Like, I don't feel like he's very big. And I just feel like that alone works against you because I feel like right now, if you want to play goaltender in the NHL, you better at least be 6'4", or you're not even going to get
6'2", which isn't bad, but if you're making yourself look small, then that's bad.
That, and I don't know. I'm looking at his stats right now. You see 4.59 goals against, and you think, okay, maybe he came in relief, but that's in 27 games.
Yeah. And 71 save percentage is pretty good. And that's after an 893 last season. So
I would say at best it probably just gives you an option to shore up Bakersfield and make them a decent team.
Yeah, I don't know. He's not a guy that I've watched a ton of, but the numbers kind of speak for themselves there. Okay, so moving on. Los Angeles Kings had a pretty insignificant draft. I mean, they only had 4 picks on the board. They get Kyle Kleikway, they get Jacob Movarir.
I think it's Movarir.
Ontario. Michael Isimont and Jacob Friend, who can be my friend if he really wants to. And they also traded for Jack Campbell. I mean, look they had no picks. I mean, we can probably pick on the Kings a lot, but they traded all their picks away, and you can probably shit on them for that. But overall, I don't think that it's. Sorry. I'll let you guys talk for a second here while I think my mommy.
I was just going to say, you mentioned how the Kings traded away all their picks. Something interesting, I actually tweeted this out right as they were eliminated from the playoffs. They have not kept a first-round pick since 2012. 2012, they selected Tanner Pearson. 2013, their first went in the Jeff Carter trade, which became Kirby Reichel. 2014 was Roland McEwen, which they dealt. 15, they dealt for Lucic, and then this year they dealt for Sekera. So it's a lot of trades that's just not helping them now, and it's not helping them in the future either.
The thing I notice, or the thing I take away from the Kings draft is that, 3 out of 4 picks were defensemen.
Yeah.
Yes, defense was clearly the Kings' weakest point this season, but the Kings also have a decent number of young, promising defensemen. They've got Kevin Gravel, they've got Paul Ledoux, Curtis McDermott. Maybe he overplayed himself this year, but he had a very good year. Leslie, Laverty. I mean, Ontario was stacked.
Oh, they were.
Say what you want about Peter Budaj not really being an AHL goalie, but their defense was amazing this year. And they traded Nick Ebert. That's 1 out of the way, but you bring 3 more guys in.
Yeah, the Reign was. I'm totally going to be totally honest with you. I'm surprised the Barracuda even won a game against them.
Yeah.
I don't disagree at all. pup profiles. I've been just dynamite in the chat all day so far. The Rangers of the West, big ticket players that cost first round picks and don't stay. Hard to argue.
What do you guys think of them acquiring Jack Campbell?
I thought it was a good option. I mean, Quick's not ancient, but I think it's a good option, just to give them, give them some different choices for Ontario. I mean, you want to talk about someone who is ancient, Peter Budaj is definitely up there.
Mm-hmm.
And they don't have a backup this year either. I know Campbell's stock kind of fell in Dallas, but I don't know. If he can prove that he can be a backup goalie at the NHL level, then why not play him?
Ian, what do you think before I jump in and rant on Jack Campbell?
I'm not. You know what? I liked Jack Campbell when he was drafted, but yeah, his stock is garbage, and I understand that. He didn't always have the best teams in front of him when he turned pro, but I'm not a big fan of Jack Campbell. I mean, if he backstops the rain, great, but I don't see any NHL upside to him anymore.
I see no NHL upside with Jack Campbell. And he was a former first-round pick, too. The only thing I like about the trade for Los Angeles is the fact that, boy, did they need a goaltender. Yep. I really think Budaj is slated to be Quick's backup next season. He's a seasoned backup anyway, and with Enroth going and Budaj setting an AHL record for the save percentage, and I believe also for goals against this year, he'll be back up. But they literally have nobody. I think Ontario went through 7 different backup goalies this season, if I have my number correctly. And none of them played more than 6 games. I think Michael Hauser, I don't have my stats in front of me, but I think Michael Hauser played the most at 6. And Michael Hauser is not a very good AHL goalie, let's be honest. So I don't think Jack Campbell is either, but it fills a need that, at least they might have a starting goalie in Ontario next year. My problem is Jack Campbell has come off in interviews as a guy who thinks he should be an NHL goalie just because he was a first-round pick, and that's why Dallas just stuffed him in the ECHL. And he had great ECHL numbers, but when you can't even produce good ECHL numbers, you're not going to be an NHL goalie, especially with that attitude. So Jack Campbell, necessity, yes, but other than that.
Yeah. So we'll finish up here with the Vancouver Canucks. They got Ole Olivier. Oh my God, what's wrong with me? Levy in the first round. They also drafted William Lockwood, Cole Candela, Jacob Stuckel, Rodrigo Abols, and Brett McKenzie. You know what? Here's my thoughts on the Vancouver Canucks really quick here. It is awesome that those who came after me will be able to watch what Mike Milbury was like as a GM for like a whole new generation. I love the Juolevi pick. Beyond that, I don't know what's going on in Vancouver anymore.
Yeah, Juolevi's really good, and they need a defense. I mean, look at their decor. Good Branson, big and slow. Tanev, Spiza, I mean, they got rid of Bieksa, or as Don Cherry says, Bieska, but still, that decor is just underwhelming. And then, Juolevi, I think he gives them some hope, but the rest of these picks, I mean, they're all very clearly late-round picks.
Yeah. The Canucks I thought they needed Matthew Tkachuk there, but they do also need Juolevi. And to me, that's a can't-miss prospect anyway, so they're fine there. Don't see a whole lot with the rest of their guys. For me, I'm going to give Vancouver a failing grade because Juolevi is a no-brainer and everyone else, all right. And then to have your general manager get fined and now under investigation for tampering, I don't think Jim Benning really meant anything other than just said, all right, this is a guy we're going to need to go after, but you can't actually say that yet, or you couldn't at that time.
Right.
So, Jim Benning's got to be smarter than that, but then again, it's Jim Benning. So.
Well, so here's the thing, is Jim Benning very clearly just out there, But when they first got him, I was really into him. I really liked the haul that he got for Kessler, and then he kind of messed that up. I mean, the first round pick he got, McCann, dealt him.
Yeah.
Got Nick Bonino, dealt him. Got Lucas Pisa, extended him to way too long of a contract.
Right.
And then, just kind of on that too, I will be very surprised if the Canucks do not sign Milan Lucic.
You would be surprised if they don't?
Yeah, just because there was this big thing last year, around this time last summer, maybe August, but Lucic hadn't even put on a Kings jersey yet, and he was like, "Yeah, I could see myself playing Vancouver." Like, why do you say that if you don't intend on playing there at some point?
Yeah.
Yeah. Lucic and Brouwer have both been linked to Vancouver. We'll see what happens there, but they're not going to turn Vancouver into a playoff team. Troy Brouwer is awesome in the playoffs, but you got to get there first, and that's just.
I will say though, if the Canucks do pick up Brouwer and they do somehow make the playoffs, I would love for them to draw the Sharks in round one. Just because I had a very hot stat for you. The Sharks are 2-0 in the playoffs when Troy Brouwer smashes his stick. So.
There you go. Oh man, yeah. I'll kind of end on this. There's a couple of guys that are like Levy. I love Levy, and they needed everything. So maybe I'd take a Chuck, but Levy's not a terrible pick either. Like, this is a defenseman I really like a lot. In my opinion, best defenseman on the board. They took him. Smart. Smart move.
Yeah.
But yeah, they need to make some smarter choices up in that management. It seems I don't understand how it's gone through. And it's like, and this is like kind of like the thing where not just because you're a good player doesn't mean you make a good executive. And man, Trevor Linden is just destroying his legacy in Vancouver right now. Like, he's got to be just demolishing it. And that's kind of sad to watch because Vancouver loved him, so much. So, right. Let's go on to winners and losers. So let's go 3 winners. Just quick reason why. 3 losers. Quick reason why. Who wants to jump all at this? Kevin.
Well, I don't know if I've got 3 yet.
Well, you don't have to have 3. You can have as many. No more than 3 though, because we're pushing time here.
There is a winner that Chicago. And
no, Florida, because
what?
Sorry, go ahead. No, I said Florida's the winner because they're going to get Alex DeBrincat in a couple of years.
Well, there you go. Yeah, okay. So I guess not Chicago, but I'm going to go with Chicago as a winner because I love Alex DeBrincat. I don't care about his size. Like, when you've got that much talent, you can push through that. And Chicago pushes out prospect after prospect after prospect. So he's going to fit in real nice. He'll not immediately, but he can fill the void of Teuvo Teravainen as far as that kind of skill and similar sizes, I guess. I like Lucas Carlson, who was a 4th-round pick, defensive defenseman, but he's got a good amount of upside. And I love Matthias From, the Dane. See, I wanted the Sharks to get a Danish player who played in Sweden last year, but it was Matthias From that I really wanted to get with a late-round pick. He's going to be playing with a lot of good young talent there, and so I like Chicago.
Yeah, I can't argue with that. Any other big likes you have there, Kevin?
I did earlier, and now I've kind of forgotten it all.
All right. Jerk, what do you got? Who's your winners?
I really liked Buffalo's draft. If I'm being totally honest, they grabbed Alex Nylander at 8, who is just going to make that Buffalo-Toronto rivalry so much more interesting. He's a good player, though. I think he'll mesh really well with either Jack Eichel or Ryan O'Reilly. They also grabbed Cliff Poo, who was part of that just filthy London Knights team. Probably he's definitely not one of their big time guys by any stretch, but he's a guy who, second line, third line, he'll chip in for you if you need him to. And I mean, Buffalo can take all the depth they can get.
Absolute steal there too.
Yeah, I thought so too. And then I really liked for Buffalo Asplund. I believe he's a center.
Yes.
Really high on European skaters rankings. I mean, I don't know a whole lot about him, but just from what I've briefly heard, I think he's a guy that you should pick up just because he's, I feel like, kind of a safe choice.
Asplund I had in the first round. Like, I'm surprised he went as far as he did down.
Yeah, I wanted to piggyback actually on the Asplund comment. I had him also in the first round, and with all of the high-end talent that Buffalo seems to be absorbing, Asplund is like a perfect guy to be a shutdown center, third and fourth line. Like, yeah, in the first, he probably fell out of the first round because he may not have enough offensive upside, but Buffalo doesn't need a guy to produce 30 more goals. They need a guy to stop 30 goals on the front end, and I think Asplund could be a great shutdown center for them.
Yeah.
Too bad. The only thing I feel bad about Buffalo for is considering like everything you said, and like everything's been about Evander Kane.
Mm-hmm. Well, who knows? Maybe they get fed up with him like Winnipeg did and then ship him out again.
Yeah, honestly, I'll be honest, I forgot Evander Kane was on Buffalo. So, and I'm still raving about all their top talent coming into Buffalo. So, yeah, get rid of get a goalie, Buffalo.
That's the thing, too. Like, you look at Buffalo's team without Evander Kane. I mean, they got Jack Eichel, Ryan O'Reilly. I didn't even mention Sam Reinhart.
Right.
So if you wanted to, you could do what Colorado did, put Ryan O'Reilly on the wing where he got 30 goals. You have Alex Nylander. You have Tyler Ennis if he wants to get going. You have Matt Molson if he wants to get going. You have Gergensons who can jump into the top six if you need him to, but definitely a solid piece at that third line center position.
Absolutely. Any other winners you got?
I really liked Winnipeg's draft as well. I mean, obviously they picked up Patrick Laine. Should be a top winger because, I mean, you look at Scheifele, Wheeler, and they traded Andrew Ladd. So, I mean, there's nobody really, I guess, right now who's knocking on the door. Maybe Nikolai Ehlers, but I think Laine is going to get a really good chance to play, especially if Winnipeg doesn't see themselves as a playoff team.
Mm-hmm.
And then Logan Stanley as well. Big dude, but from what I've heard, he's solid on the back end. And then Luke Green as well dropped all the way to the third round, but I thought for sure he was going to go in the top 60.
Yeah.
Sorry,
go ahead.
I was just saying I like Cedarholm for them since I'm a Swedes guy. I like that one for them.
It's hard. Winnipeg always drafts so well, and I'm not a huge Logan Stanley guy. I feel like there's like a 6-7 defenseman that gets drafted in the first round every year, and I just don't feel like any of them are currently playing in the NHL. But you know what? It's still hard to argue because like it's one of those teams where it's like Detroit. You know, they kind of reached in the first round, but you have to give them the benefit of the doubt just based on their draft history. Like you can't just be like, they don't know what the hell they're doing. Like, obviously, Ken Holland knows what the hell he's doing. So yeah, and Chris Edwards pointing out that Ehlers is already in the NHL.
Yeah.
Anyone else before I drop mine?
I just wanted to say I didn't like Winnipeg's draft only because Logan Stanley busted my draft board.
Oh, well,
I had my top 17 went in the 17, and then Logan Stanley obliterated my draft board. So.
Sit down, buddy. All right, so I'll go quick here. My winners, obviously, look, my number one winner is obviously the Calgary Flames. You went into the weekend with a bunch of question marks on your team, and you addressed a bunch of it. Brian Elliott makes them a contender. I think they have a good enough team now that they can contend. Their goaltending last year was atrocious. Obviously, they basically hit on every draft pick, and to do that and then get Brian Elliott out of the deal as well, I mean, you can't go wrong. And the thing with Brian Elliott too, or not, sorry, I lost my complete train of thought. The thing with Elliott, yeah, was that he went for a 35th overall. Like,
Yeah.
how can you go wrong with that? Like, you
And,
got him for pennies on the dollar.
and Calgary had a ton of draft picks, so
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Arizona, obviously, a big winner for me. Obviously when John Shaika got hired, we all kind of made jokes about, like, trading Pokemon cards and, trading him, juice boxes and stuff from his lunchbox. But, we probably all feel pretty dumb now because he had himself quite the draft in his first year. He was aggressive, like maybe he was a little too aggressive on the Datsuk deal, but you know what? He got what his team needed, and that D pipeline is going to be nice and full because they already had a decent forward pipeline, and now their D pipeline's looking really, really good again. So I like Arizona. And finally, I thought Montreal had a really good draft.
Yeah.
A little under the radar. I thought Sergachev in the first round was a great pick for them. They got Victor Met, who I'm a big fan of, Will Bitton, steals where they got those guys. And they didn't trade PK Subban, which is a victory every time and twice on Sunday. They robbed the Capitals. Like, let's be honest, Lars Eller for 2 seconds is stupid. Like, they Doug Wilson them. And then to turn around and then get Shaw for that, and then going back to what you said about Chicago, and Chris brought this up in the chat as well. Chicago turns those picks into frickin' Chad Chris and Alex DeBrincat. Like, how can you go wrong? Like, it's just everyone won in that situation except for Washington, in my opinion.
Yeah, I really liked Montreal picking up Shaw just because he's got the bad reputation with being a outspoken, especially on the ice. But I really like his game. He's a guy, he's going to make you skate for the puck. He'll grind you down, but he can also pot some goals and play on the power play.
Hey.
Sorry about that.
Awesome.
Okay, so let's quickly do our losers. Who are your draft losers? Go ahead, Kevin.
Oh, shoot. I'm not there yet. Well, honestly, though, I think the Sharks are. I think the Sharks are a draft loser. I'm not going to give them a failing grade, but they're there. Because outside of our boy Noah Gregor, I think the strategy they could have done, especially with that second-round pick, they could have traded down and gotten the same guy. It's not necessarily the guys that they picked, but it's the guys that they could have gotten, or the guys that they could have picked in much more, responsible spots. So I'm gonna say the Sharks were a loser.
They also didn't deal Wingles or Nieto, so.
Now, how do you mean that in a positive light or a?
I mean that like negatively. I hate to totally shit on a guy, but I'm just not a big fan really of either of those players at this point in time. I think we have guys in the pipe who can and probably will do a much better job fixing the bottom six and getting it to score more goals. Timo, obviously, but say what you want about Goldobin, he had a solid year with Barracuda this year. And there's just so many more forward prospects the Sharks have that haven't even gotten AHL time yet, and they already look like they're going to be good.
Yeah, I thought Doug Wilson did an interesting thing where he didn't make any trades at all. Usually he'll at least bunch some picks together and move up or move down or whatever. He didn't do anything. That was, I love Jonathan Dahlen, and I didn't really expect him to be there at 60, but I thought the Sharks were going to move up and take him. What you talked about with Long Beach native Matt Nieto was exactly my feeling. I'm not a big Long Beach native Matt Nieto fan, and he had tremendous upside when he came in, but I don't see the speed that he once had. Everyone talks about he's so incredibly fast. Well, he used to be, but not so much now. He's just kind of a meh player to me. He doesn't have all this offensive upside anymore. His defense is fine, but if you want to say get rid of Spalling for this because he doesn't bring enough offense, well, neither does Nieto. most of Nieto's offense are empty net goals. So
Most of Nieto's offense is also at the expense of the LA Kings. I mean, what, 3 playoff goals all against LA? So maybe we do need to keep him around.
So they could have moved him for a pick. Like we talked about DeBrink. I don't know if they would have gotten a top second round pick to move up and get DeBrincat, but DeBrincat there at 39. That's
That's the thing. That's the thing too. Good friend of mine, Wug Dilson on Twitter. He's like, if Andrew Shaw can get the Blackhawks 2 seconds, why can't we get 1 for Matt Nieto? So.
yeah.
Yeah, my losers. I'm just gonna go through this quick because I know we're kind of pushing time here. I thought Boston again really underwhelmed on the draft floor. I like McAvoy, but other than that, I don't really think very much of their draft class. St. Louis, I don't think had a very good draft. You gave up Elliott for pennies on the dollar again, like I said. And they have a couple of picks, but nothing super spectacular. And Vancouver, obviously. Vancouver, who just I love Ulevi, but other than that, it wasn't a great draft for them. This team, it's a team with a lot of issues though, and maybe they can't just fix them all on the draft floor. In the chat, Columbus was brought up. I didn't really like the I didn't like the Kirby Reichel trade for them, but other than that, I don't know. They're in such a tough spot. I don't mind them taking Pierre-Luc Dubois. I didn't hate that as much. I mean, yeah, it's not Ulevi, and they probably should have taken Ulevi there, but I don't hate it there. It's not like it was a huge reach. I mean, Pierre-Luc Dubois could have easily gone 4th instead of 3rd, so I don't think it's a huge reach.
Yeah. You meant Puliarvi.
Yes, that's who I did mean.
Chris Edwards brought up Vitaly Abramov. Loads of skill, but is he ever going to come over to North America? So yeah, we don't know. So being an undersized player too, again, I think that shouldn't be in nearly as much of a consideration. But an undersized player who's got the Russian factor at 65, his talent is top 40 talent, but with the other things, I mean, he's a guy I could have seen slide further, and yeah, so.
Somebody that I thought was a loser in the draft was the Minnesota Wild, and I kind of view their draft haul as the same as the LA Kings. I mean, they didn't have a whole lot of picks just because they were basically trading them away for not a lot of playoff success to begin with. I mean, I'm trying to think off the top of my head. A couple of years ago, they traded for Matt Molson. That didn't work out. Pominville hasn't worked out. There's one more. I can't really remember right now. Yeah, Vanek. It's the same thing as LA. They're giving up all these assets for guys that aren't helping them. And, the guys that they did pick up, I mean, I don't totally know 100%, but just from what I've heard, they don't seem like guys who are going to make an impact soon, if ever.
I don't like the draft for Minnesota either, and I would be scared if I was a Wild fan because you've got some tough contracts.
Yeah.
Your prospect pool isn't outside of Alex Tuck. I would need to look up and see if they've got anyone worthwhile. I know that the Iowa Wild have struggled for years now, and they're not getting any better.
They're really high on Eriksson Ek.
Okay, there's another one, Eriksson Ek.
Eriksson Ek's a good pick.
How many picks did Minnesota have? 4?
Yeah, I believe so.
Something like that.
So you really need to add more pieces to the cupboard. And Minnesota, I mean, 2 of the 4 picks were in the 7th round, in the latter half of the 7th round.
Yeah.
So I'd be scared if I was a Wild fan.
That's the thing too. I feel like Minnesota, LA, and Vancouver even are all kind of in that same middle area where it's yeah, we suck, but we don't really have anything else to look forward to either.
Yeah. All right. So let me kind of just go here. I started a little poll on the Twitter machine before we went on the air, and I just said, grade the thing. We got 25 votes, so that's not bad. No one gave the Sharks an A. 24% of the 25 people gave the Sharks a B. 64% over, pretty big majority gave the Sharks a C, and 12% said they failed. What say you? Where would you put in on this? I'll start with Jerk.
I'm going to say, and I'm actually looking at it right now, and I'm going to vote right now. I just said C, because they did pick up a couple, I don't want to say like outstanding pieces, but a couple good pieces, Gregor and then Viederer, or how do you say his name? I'm going to butcher it. I thought those guys were really good pickups, but other than that, I mean, the guys they did pick up were guys that, were going to be there regardless. I know they didn't trade up or trade down, but if there were any thoughts that they might have to, I don't think that they were necessarily warranted. I mean, they're just roster spot fillers at this point. They're not really impact players.
Yeah, Kevin?
Yeah, like I said, I won't give them a failing grade, but I would say a C, because they at least got some guys with upside. I mean, there aren't any players of the 5 that they drafted that were like, this guy sucks.
True.
Right.
So there are guys that it's like, all right, we'll see. Like Blichfeld, we'll see. Shoemaker, maybe not so much, but he's not terrible. And then the Gambrel, Gregor, and Viederer, I like Gregor. Viederer's all right. Gambrel could be all right. I want to see how his sophomore season in Denver goes. But I'm fine with their draft, but I still think they're a draft loser anyway, though.
Yeah, that's fair. I look, when I look at it, I mean, my concern now is when we had that 2014 draft, I thought like the philosophy had changed for the Sharks, and a much needed philosophy change for the Sharks.
Yeah.
And at this point now, I'm kind of wondering if 2014 was blind squirrel finds nut, because 2015 was a so-so draft. There's some picks in the 2015 draft I really like. I like Balcers, I like Haluka, I like Timo Meier, obviously. This draft, there's a couple of guys that I like. And it's hard when you are drafting, when you're drafting at the end of the second round, you have no third-round picks. So obviously a lot of the guys you're taking are going to be on the lower end of the spectrum just based on the picks you have. So it wasn't the worst draft ever, but it's not a good one. And it's just like, I feel like if I had my way, like, in my opinion, if anything ever happens to Doug Wilson, which obviously isn't even to be considered right now, but oh my God, I hope they overhaul that scouting staff when they do.
Oh,
That's
please.
just how I feel about it. Like, I don't hate this draft, and I don't hate the drafting team. Like, they've made some good picks, but I just feel like I'm just tired of watching them take good picks and just incredibly reach with them. Like, as a fan, I'm fed up with it.
Yeah,
And
I agree.
For all the love that Doug Wilson's earned, like, he should get a little hate. And I think I said to Chris Edwards earlier on Facebook, I'm like, I for one am glad that the Doug Wilson love fest is over for a little bit. So I think that it's a C to me. It wasn't. They didn't fail. But I mean, they did as little as possible to pass. Aside from the Gregor pick, they just did as little as possible to pass.
Yeah.
They seem to. I feel like the Sharks scouting staff lately, or last year and this year, are really trying to get these guys from nations that are not the powerhouse nations. Like, they seem so determined to make a Danish star and a Norwegian star and a German star, and it's like, you have to go that route with half of your picks when there are smarter.
I agree with that, but something in this draft that I was happy with was there wasn't so many just weird European picks. Like, a lot of the guys they picked, other than the last pick, they've all played in North America.
No, yeah.
And
but I mean, like,
that was a nice improvement from last year's draft.
Yeah, a pick like that reminds me a lot of last year's draft, is what I mean.
No, I agree. Yep. All right. So I guess if anyone has any questions from the chat, I know we've kept you here a while now. ran a little longer than I thought we would. Any questions in the chat? Anyone wants to tweet at us quickly? We'll kind of just sit here and go.
I actually have something that I'm curious on your guys' opinion on.
Sure.
I sent out a poll earlier today about where Alexander Nylander should play should he not make it to Buffalo. And between the AHL, the OHL, and the Swedish Hockey League, it's pretty split down the middle. I'm curious to see what you guys think.
Does he not? I thought I heard he had a contract to play in the Swedish Elite League next year.
Oh,
yes.
I didn't know that.
Yes, Alexander Nylander. Oh, I do want to mention something now that I thought about it. Blichfeld is going to the Q next year. I forgot about that. So he is at least coming over to North America.
He was a guy I was worried wouldn't make the jump.
Yeah, I just remembered right now. Blichfeld is coming over to the Q. I don't remember what team, but it is to the Q. Yeah, your question. Remind me your question again.
Just where do you say Alex Nylander doesn't make it to Buffalo? Where do you think is his best fit?
He signed before the draft, which I thought was weird, being a high-profile draft pick. He signed a 2-year deal with Rögle in the Swedish Hockey League. I'm sure there's an NHL out clause that he could go to Buffalo. But, yeah, he won't be in Canadian Juniors next year for certain. So I think I could see him making the Sabres, though.
I think so, too, especially with all the uncertainty behind Evander Kane. I mean, it's really anyone's guess at this point what that team looks like.
Yeah.
We did get a question as I get mauled by my son here. Who ends up with Steven Stamkos?
Detroit.
I got ripped on this by the fans of this team, not surprisingly. I still have this weird suspicion it's going to be St. Louis. People were saying, the Blues fans were attacking me for saying that, going, but how are they going to sign David Backes? And I'm like, well, you're not. That's the thing. You're not going to re-sign David Backes, but you are going to after Steven Stamkos. I don't have any inside info as to why. It hasn't really been rumored. It's just a gut feeling.
I think it's going to be Buffalo, because Terry Pegula just does not care. He will throw whatever money around. He'll be like, here is your Brinks truck of money, and come play. Detroit wouldn't surprise me. I mean, obviously everything Detroit did this weekend was to make a run at Stamkos, but I think Buffalo's going to take a good run at him.
So because I'm reading Cody James' comment about the Stamkos Detroit sweater. If Stamkos doesn't go to Detroit, let's say he goes to Buffalo, because they're in the same division, if I recall.
Yes. No.
If he goes to Buffalo,
yes,
we should tag team in Detroit. You can wear the Datsuk Coyotes jersey, and I'll wear the Stamkos Sabres jersey, and piss off all the Red Wings fans.
And neither of us will leave alive.
In the meantime, if you like our stupid banter, please subscribe. Whoops, this side. Subscribe.
Yes, please give us as much love as you can. We definitely would appreciate it.
The more subscribers that we get, the better or the less choppy my internet connection is.
Start a hashtag on Twitter.
Pup profiles. Someone has to wear whatever team he signs with in the KHL. Just so we've got a Coyotes jersey, we've got a Stamkos and whatever not Detroit team he signs for, and then a Datsuk jersey in the KHL, and we'll see who dies the quickest. Probably me in the jersey.
Love it.
Yeah, look, we're pushing time here. So obviously I want to, like Kevin said, please subscribe to the channel if you like what we're doing. Maybe at one point I'll move this just over to the other channel. It'll make more sense. But I like to think what we're doing here is different than After Dark, and which is why it needs its own channel, because it's not. We do talk Sharks sometimes, but other times we're just gonna hammer out just general NHL topics. So. This has been really fun, though, so far. I mean, I'm only 3 episodes in, but this has been super fun. I don't know when we're going to come back next. I feel like I'd like to try to do it next week so I can get TTG and this on opposite schedules.
Free agency starts next Friday.
Ooh, there you go. We'll be back next week. Man, this is fantastic. All right. Obviously, thank you for watching. Jerk, thanks for coming on. We'll have to have you on again. Kevin, thank you as always for
Thank you.
bringing
Yeah,
the
thank
things.
you.
And, yeah, thanks everyone for watching. And yeah, see you later. Read Pucknology. Watch Pucknology After Dark. Listen to Teal Tinted Glasses. Drink lots of water. It's hot. Bye.
Follow us all on Twitter.
Yes, follow us on Twitter at iReadPucknology, at hockey. You have an underscore in your jerk?
Yep.
Hockey_jerk at Kevin Lacy 22. Peace out.